Here we are on Wednesday, Jason Fitz, and I'm not sure that I have absorbed it all in. I'm not sure that I actually believe what I saw on Wednesday night, that Trae Young walked into Philadelphia for a third time, 3 times on your home floor, and beat the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, most of the narrative seems to be that this is all Ben Simmons' fault. But is it singularly Ben Simmons that cost them the series against the Hawks?
No. I mean, I think, you've got to look at the coaching, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the decisions throughout the course of the entire series were questionable at times. And I think, you look at the rotation of the way it was used. And I don't want to take anything away from Trae Young and what we saw. But the reality of it is there was a true expectation that this team, talent-wise, could compete with anybody. And they left everything out there. I mean, that was a hobble Joel Embiid. We all know it. And Tobias Harris had some nice games along the way. But I struggle to look at the hardest type of loss. Let me say it this way. The hardest type of loss for fans to swallow are the ones where afterwards you remember 1 or 2 moments and say, how the heck did that happen? This feels like. And that's why it's going to continually sit in everybody's craw. But, the Game 7 is going to cause massive change, should cause massive change for the organization. And no, it's not all Ben Simmons' fault. But if you're going to pick one person, that's an easy person to pick to point a lot of blame towards.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch that and see, he obviously, here's a guy, look, polarizing as he is, some people can't stand him. He doesn't shoot, can't stand him, can't play in this league. If you can't shoot, can't score, I don't want you. Then there's another side that kind of appreciates what he does bring to the table and, all that. Nobody could understand how he went from a poor free throw shooter to historically the worst. If he was just poor, they probably would have swept the series. So that is why I think this is so hard to swallow, is the fact that even the biggest hater has to at least acknowledge that what you don't like him for, he wasn't the same guy in this series. He was something. It was almost like watching Markelle Fultz break down.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. When you've got a mental breakdown, what fixes it? And that's, I think, what's going to sit in everybody's mind. What really bothers me is seeing the next day when the organization comes out, when Doc comes out and says, hey, we've got a plan for Ben Simmons. And also essentially says, hey, you can work hard. It doesn't mean you're working smart. Well, now there needs to be real follow-up questions to that. Like, has the organization been asking him to do this and he's simply chosen not to? And if so, I think you need to be really loud about that. We've seen the articles about who he surrounded himself with, but there also has to be some organization ownership, Ben, and realistically, how much does the organization allowing superstars to do what they want to do? How much do they have to bear some of the burden here? And to me, that's the part of it that I feel like what the 76ers as a team has done since then is basically thrown Ben Simmons under the bus without ever saying, hey, this is what we allowed. This was our plan from the get-go. This is what wasn't taken from our plan. We've had no transparency from them. And in the process of doing it, I don't know why we're supposed to just believe that the organization's been on the right side every step of the way and Ben Simmons has been on the wrong. That just feels a really convenient narrative to get after that loss.
Isn't that, Jay, the culture of the NBA, though? Like, apparently, I had read an article yesterday, and we had the guy on, Yaron Weitzman from Fox, who said, essentially the Sixers had this plan for Ben, and he shot 70% from the free throw line in the playoffs his rookie season. They had been working with him. There was one coach, and that was his job, and the arrow was going up. They had this 4-page layout for him, and then his agent came in and said, nah, he's going to go work with his brother this offseason. And at that point, is that the culture of the NBA? Is that the franchise's problem? Should they not allow these guys to go work with that? Can you do that? How does that work?
Now, you trade him. I mean, at that point, if you understand that, hey, I don't trust, we'll use this with a little tongue-in-cheek, I don't trust his process as an organization. I only know he's going to get worse. And the worse he gets, the worse the trade market is for him. And I think that's one of the things that has really blown my mind. I've seen everybody saying, well, trade him. Every GM in the NBA watched that series. What are you getting for him now? Like a super collectible Funko Pop and a bag of popsicles? Like, you're not getting anything in return for Ben Simmons at this point, and that's on the organization. If they had a plan for him and he wouldn't take it, then they need to go in and say, fine, I respect that. I want you to be the best version of you, but we're going to trade you right now before this gets any worse. By not doing that then, now they put themselves in this situation where all they're realistically going to get back from Ben Simmons, in my mind, and I believe this strongly, is a B or C level player at best and some draft equity. You are not going to be better than Brooklyn with whatever you get in return for Ben Simmons. That's the organization's fault. If he had a plan and he chose not to take it, that was their signal right then that we need to get out of the Ben Simmons relationship while the equity is the highest. If you know that there's a really good shot that your house could have a foundation issue, you sell that thing before everybody else finds out, because once the rest of the world finds out, you got to fix it before you can sell it, and now you're upside down, and that's where the 76ers have put themselves with Ben Simmons.
Yeah, it's a very interesting spot they're in because obviously they fired the coach last year. They brought a new coach in, and guess what, Jay? People are blaming this coach now too. So how much of a role do coaches have in the success and failure of these teams? I mean, everybody thought Brett Brown, he was the worst, and it's his fault. Well, Bruce Bowen, he's on today with Greeny, and he's saying, I don't think Brett Brown was all that bad, and I don't really think it was much of his fault. Look at what's going on with Doc Rivers. I hear the same thing. These people call, they text, they tweet at me. Brett Brown the worst. Now it's Doc Rivers, he's horrible. He cost him the series. Does every coach cost the team? I don't know that one coach that anybody likes in this league.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think coaching, when it's great, can be a great advantage. I would argue, for example, Monty Williams last night, drawing up that play while they were having
and who did he give credit? Who did he give credit to for that play?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Brett,
I mean,
he
so
said I
you
got
look at
that.
and
He
you
said
say,
I got that play
okay,
from.
right.
He said I got that play from Brett Brown.
And so you can look at it and say, fine, when coaching is on, it can be that little extra. It's like if you have the best cake in the world and the icing is absolutely perfect, that is what coaching can be. And I think coaching can help if you've got a team that needs a new voice and needs to hear somebody different. But in a situation like this, I mean, if we're going to talk, like I said earlier, about the rotations and the players and the way they're being used, you're right. Absolutely. Every coach has such a short lifespan because realistically, unless they can inject energy in, I don't know how much we can take away from coaching. Look at our Final Four coaches. Budenholzer was a bum until suddenly Milwaukee won, and now it's like, no, everything's going to be good. Monty Williams is the glorious, absolute wonder coach, right? But at the same time, you talk to people around the organization, they'll tell you CP3 gets a lot of the credit for coming in and giving the guys the internal message to toughen up. Ty Lue is the worst when they lose the first two games in every season, but then he's the best at adjustments when they win them without anyone acknowledging that health is really the factor we talk about. Like, so you're 1,000% right. The only thing that I think a coaching change can do is it can galvanize the locker room together if it's a new voice that finds the way to get into the right speaking, the right tone with the players. Like, I think the Celtics needed a new voice just to hear somebody fresh that maybe can bring them together. But realistically, I look at coaching as a 2-year thing, like maybe a 3-year thing. I mean, the Pelicans had some success, but not enough for them to keep their coach, right? Like, everybody just looks at it and says, well, if I've got a star, I'll just make a rotating door until I get the right coach in the building.
Yeah, the Lue thing's interesting. You know, my buddy who he hates Lue. He thinks he's the worst coach ever. And I'm like, the guy's won a championship. What am I supposed to do with that? Well, he has LeBron. I said, but that's my point on the coach. The coach is only as good as the players that he has around him. And now I'm hearing all of the NBA people like, oh, as you just said, Lue's making great adjustments and he's doing all the stuff. I said, so is now Lue good? And my buddy, he doesn't want to answer that question. He said, well, he's got this guy. I said, well, Kawhi's hurt and he's still winning. Well, now they're down 0-2, but still, I mean, that whole dynamic of blaming the coach for me, I just can't, like, get a grasp of it. I get it. They have a role. I always say, Jay, they have a role. Their impact is something, but every big loss in every game, it's the coach costs them, and I can't get behind that.
And at some point, we have to look at coaches the same way we look at every job. If you are a spreadsheet maker and you have the worst computers in the world, somebody else is going to make better spreadsheets that has a better computer. If you're a sports talk host and your microphones stink, it doesn't matter what you do. At some level, if somebody has better radio signal, they're going to have a better audience. And, if you're a musician and you're playing really, really bad violins, like somebody might think you're not as good as the other. And I always use this one really because I love food. But if you are a chef and you walk in, sometimes chefs can make chicken salad out of you-know-what. But realistically, if you are in a top chef competition and you have best chefs in the world, and one person has the best ingredients ever, and the other person is cooking with somebody's leftovers that were burnt in the first place, guess who's going to win that cooking competition more often than not? The ingredients matter no matter how good or bad you are at your job.
All I know is this. The Sixers have now gone through 5 GMs. It's now the second coach's fault. Maybe this group of players is just not good enough to get it done. Maybe we have to start to realize that might be a little bit of the problem. Jason Fitz, I want to get your opinion on what the hell is college football doing?
Yeah, here's the thing. If we're looking at expansion and we're looking at name, image, likeness, and all of these things happening at once, one thing I would say to the college football fan is just get used to, for the next 18 months, being really uncomfortable and stop yelling about what you want. Because frankly, the minute the Supreme Court comes in and tells the NCAA what they're doing, this is no longer about what anybody wants. This is about what's inevitable. And so you've got to start looking at your favorite team and saying, okay, how is my favorite team going to compete in this market? And if we end up with college football expansion while we end up with name, image, likeness, I think for the first 2, 3, 4 years, it might be gruesome to watch some of these teams that make the playoffs and get murdered in the first round. But realistically, long term, if it helps spread recruiting out, that's the real problem for college. The real problem is that if you are it's not Ohio State, Alabama, naturally are getting less. And at the point, the best recruits are going to go where they can get the most. And that may, in 5 years, some. At the end of the day, just remind you end up with this brutal Alabama beating Coastal Carolina 50-0. Is that really worse than sitting through a Music City Bowl nobody cared about in the first place? My answer is no. Like, give me a blowout playoff game over a meaningless bowl game between two teams nobody wants to watch.
I did enjoy the one Music City Bowl that I attended because I got to go to Nashville, right? I mean, what better place to go for a football game is Nashville? He's Jason Fitz. You can hear him on Spain and Fitz right here on 97.3 ESPN, at Jason Fitz on Twitter. And, of course, he on the Sports Bash Live. Great stuff. Yes, Nashville is a great party. And I didn't have my college shirt on today. Damn it, I forgot to do that for you. All right, man.
Get you an old school UNLV shirt. I need some Vegas. Now, we've seen the Nashville. Give me like the old Running Rebels from the Larry Johnson, Stacey Augmon era. I'm all in for that. That's the next city we got to figure out how to party.
All right, I think I've never been to Vegas. I'm in Atlantic City, so I've not done the Vegas thing, but it's something that's on my list. I'll get out there. Don't tell me you got to do Vegas. I know. All right, pal. I'll talk to you.
No. You got to do Vegas with me. We'll do Vegas together. That's the way to do it.
All right, now you got me. Now I'm in. Take care.